All right, YouTube. Once again, it's Kennard, Vernon, and Stewart here for the podcast. Talking Auburn football. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. Spring football is in full swing, is in full effect. Man, COVID-19 will not interrupt spring football this year. So the excuses of, okay, we didn't have spring football, we didn't have this, that, and the other, will not be acceptable this year. Now, we have a few, house cleaning things we got to think about. Number one, we got to look at Auburn on defense. Reflecting back to the 2020 season, Auburn was among one of the worst defenses as far as rankings go on defense. Number 74th, according to the NCAA cumulative stats. Now, here's where things get difficult in this analysis, because you got to think about the fact that all teams didn't play a full season. But when you look at all the teams that played a full season and you look at Auburn, the numbers are absolutely abysmal. Auburn averaged about 5.62 yards per play. And when you look at the trajectory of this coming season, that's not going to work. Bryan Harsin and his staff, Derek Mason and company, they're going to have to fix this stat, because if this stat is not fixed, you talk about a situation where Auburn has, Georgia State, Alabama State, Akron, and then Penn State, but then you go to a real brutal stretch in the SEC where you have teams like Arkansas, Ole Miss, LSU, Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina. Those teams are going to add a very equally opposite, diverse type of offense that Auburn has absolutely got to be prepared for. But here's the good news. Auburn has done a decent job of recruiting over the last few years to where they have a diverse set of talent. Now, I know a lot of you guys can rewind back to the LSU game in 2019 where Auburn ran the 3-1-7 defense. A lot of folks were like, well, Auburn was really successful because, it was raining and all this. No, I think the rain is accountable for both teams. I think Kevin Steele came into that game with a really good game plan and a really good use of his personnel. And I think that's what Auburn could possibly have this year. They have a very diverse set of talent sets that they can use to be diverse. I don't think Derek Mason has to be rigid or stubborn in how he runs this defense. I think he has enough personnel to where he can piece guys. He can look at film and say, you know what, we can put, say, Marco DeMio in a different spot this week. We can put TD Moultrie in a different spot this week. Like I said before, with the diversity of Auburn and their recruiting, no, these guys are not all five-star, 4-star recruits. But there's a lot of diversity and talent to where Derek Mason will have some options, just like Kevin Steele did. Because, you look back at 2019, if Kevin Steele didn't have the diversity of talent, he wouldn't have been able to execute this. Because if you think about LSU against some of the other teams that have rigidity in their personnel, like Clemson, I think those guys were ultimately talented. But they were like real linebackers. Not no hip-turning linebackers, not no linebackers that could cover the flat. They were not diverse in talent as far as being able to fit a certain system to stop a certain kind of team. So that's why Clemson wasn't really successful against against LSU. So I think the diversity standpoint of how Auburn has been able to recruit and not going totally for the 5 stars and actually really dissecting the type of talent that they bring to the table, it gives these options as far as what you can do based on the different types of teams that you're going to face in the SEC, because each week in the SEC is going to bring a diverse type of talent. You talk about Georgia. They have a real power type deal. to where they have really good offensive linemen, they have really good running backs, they have now a really good quarterback, wide receivers who are not going to necessarily kill you, but guys who are actually really talented, especially like George Pickens, who's starting to come onto his own. So Auburn is going to have the type of personnel to defend this kind of stuff. Then you talk about Arkansas, who has that same kind of power type football that Auburn is going to have to adjust to. And then you got the Ole Miss situation where you have Lane Kiffin, to where you're going to have to spread some things out. You might have to have a situation to where you utilize a few more speedy cornerbacks to counter what the spread offense that Lane Kiffin brings to the table. And Auburn did a really good job with their personnel against Mississippi State in controlling the air raid. And then, of course, you got Alabama, who has their situation with great wide receivers, great running backs. So Auburn is really going to have to utilize their personnel and development opportunities to make this stuff happen. Now, on to the offensive side of the football field. Auburn was also ranked around the 70-ish range. A lot of that due to, errant play on the offensive line, missed blocks, things of that nature, errant play on the part of Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix is in a situation to where, I think he can be successful. I look at, even in business, some people function better under different leadership. And I think this is a huge opportunity for Bo Nix under different leadership, under leadership that will probably pay a little bit more attention to detail, pay a little bit more attention to technique, and give this guy an opportunity to really be successful at Auburn. Man, how about this? This particular weekend, Auburn is going to actually have fans at the practice. Very transparent, kind of sort of old school. I'm pretty sure Bryan Harsin has done his homework to make sure that the NCAA doesn't hit him on the back end for this. But big shout out to Bryan Harsin and the staff for bringing a little bit more camaraderie and bringing a little bit more likable sensibility to this program, to where the fans feel engaged. Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast Talking Auburn Football. Like the video, comment, and subscribe. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.